Hello everybody, my name is Michael. You know me as Coding Jungle, and today I want to talk about Babel 3's settings. There are numerous, I shouldn't say settings, the user settings, because Babel does have user settings or user configurations for it. And I want to go over them real fast because they have changed since 2. There's more of them, for one, and they do additional things. All right, so let's open up a chat here. I'm doing it on the Babel bar or the global bar because that's the default view. But more or less, these settings hold true for either view. So keep that in mind. All right, disable toolbar. Now, this is here because I don't like the toolbar. I rarely use it. And if I need it, I can re-enable it. So if you, by default, it's disabled. Like if the people want it, they can go back to it. This is an editor, just to show you that it is an editor. I'll start typing my name here, and it does bring up the mentions list. So that is an editor, and it does have the upload because the uploads are hidden on 3. But you can easily, open them back up. All right. So let's get a message in here for the next setting. All right. Now this is what local time does. IPS and many other online suites will do what they call relative time. In Babel, you have the choice between local and relative time. And what local time does is just as it sounds, it converts that relative time to local time, to your time. So even if I was saying, because I'm in the Midwest in the United States, so even if I was a user, say you had a user in, say, Great Britain, in England, London time, I don't think England has time zone, do they? No. I'm sorry, I got distracted there. That happens a lot. I'm like a cat. I get distracted easily. But anyway, let's say you have a member from the other side of the world that sends a message. Now the local time will display in your time, not theirs. So, like I said, it's your local time. Reverse messages, that's been in Babel for a while, but I'll touch upon here. Basically, Babel's default state on reverse messages or on messages is that new messages at the top, old messages at the bottom. As you can see, that's the old message got pushed down, the new message got inserted above that. Now the reason that is like that actually dates back to the original Babel, and that's what the client wanted. It wasn't until Babel 2 that the reverse message order got added in, and that's actually the lineage that got released out onto the IPS market is Babel 2. Babel 1 was never on the IPS market because it wasn't made for the IPS market. So what reverse order does, if I was to click that, it would reload the page. Now it would put oldest messages at the top and newest messages at the bottom. That's the simplest way to explain what reverse messages does. Now there is a setting in the ACP to turn this on, but it only affects people who haven't been in Babel yet, because as soon as they connect to Babel, they get a Babel user account, basically, which exists because we can't add core table or add fields to the core tables anymore. So I had to create my own member account, basically. But it's not a clone of their member account. It's just related specifically to Babel settings. So as soon as that gets created, it grabs the default settings that are already there. So that's why it doesn't override their settings if you switch it off in the back. It only applies to new members. All right, the next one, this one was in 2, but I'll go over it here again. It's the send button. And basically, it's just, some people might not want to, hit the enter key. Maybe they don't realize that they can, or they like the idea of that. But it's mainly here because there are people who like to do uploads, and to do the upload, you'd have to, without the send button, you'd have to click choose file and upload your file and then attach it or whatever. Then you'd have to enter, and some people might not want to do that. That's the whole reason why this is an option and hasn't been completely removed. Because I think Skype is like that, and it drives me batty some days. But anyway, that's why that exists. Now, disable PR and disable whispers are kind of related because they're, for private rooms and disabled whispers. Now, what this does, if you have the ability to send private rooms or whispers, it doesn't actually affect your ability to send them. What it does is it prevents people from whispering you or sending you private room invites. And I can see, that being useful to people because you might not want to deal with whispers, like private messages and all that. So you can disable them if you don't want them. Enter leave messages. Now this was actually in Babble 2. It's just because of my foolish nature, I had to tie them to the leave and enter sound. So the only time you ever saw them was if you had those two enabled. And a lot of people, they're like me, they don't like sound. So they if they turned them off, they didn't get notifications of who was entering and leaving the chat. Like it's just a text. It's just a message basically that says such and such has left and such and such has entered the room. That's what that does. If you have it enabled, you'll see them. If you have them disabled, you won't see them. Remember is a new setting too. It's pretty straightforward. It is what remembers the open state, the position, and the size of the window. So if you have this disabled and you went to a new page, then then it wouldn't remember that demo was open, and it wouldn't remember that it was x by x, width by height, size, and that it was at this section of the screen. It was at this position on the screen. I put that in there because not everybody would want to keep windows open, that sort of thing. So if they don't like that feature, they can turn it off. Links. This is possibly one of the most heated debates I've ever been in my life. That wasn't. I would even say the top most debated thing I've ever debated on. And a little backstory on that. There is absolutely no quorum on whatsoever when it comes to how links should open. Like, should they open up in the same window or a new window? Now, to me, and this is the rule that I've generally lived by my entire life as a web developer and my existence on the internet. This is what I expect from all sites. If it's an internal link that's not a menu item, and then it should open in the same page. If it's a menu item, it should obviously, without exception, open up on the same page. If it's an external link, it should always open up in a new tab. Well, that's kind of what I've been told is kind of an antiquated way of looking at the web, because on mobile devices, you might not necessarily want that behavior. You might want everything to open up in the same window versus having 20, 30 tabs open up on a device that's got an octo core that can power a stopwatch and memory of 64K is enough kind of mentality. So basically what I've done here, I've given the user the ability, because in Babble 2 it was a nightmare because I had to remove the setting, add different settings, change settings, and when I went to the editor it became even harder because I no longer process the message myself. I let IPS do it. So on 3, for the first time, debuting, hopefully the end all be all to this discussion on my behalf, now the user can determine how links open up on their own device. So if they set it to links to enabled, it will open all links, regardless if they're internal or external, in a new window. And if it's disabled, it opens them up all in the same window, regardless if they're internal or external. Now, I might, in a future version, expand that to be different. Like maybe they can select, external or internal to open up a new window. So only internals will open up in the same window, and externals will open up in a new window. I'm not sure I'm going to do that yet, but I might add that in a future version. Inline email notifications, that's been there for a while. I'll touch upon it. Basically, if you're offline for more than 15 minutes from Babble, like if you go idle or you close out the page, 15 minutes after that, the system itself, the Babble system will mark you as offline. Basically, if there's any kind of check that goes along with your account. And what that does is it will, if somebody mentions you in that chat and you have access to that chat, it will send you either an email notification or a notification inline here. Now, there is some confusion on this because of the way I did it, because there are 3 ways for the site. Well, for you, there's 2 ways for you to control that behavior, and that's here, enabling it enabling it or disabling it. If it's enabled, it will send them. If it's disabled, it won't send them. And that setting is actually tied to your notification settings, the mentions and my content. So whatever you got marked here, if you got both of these unchecked, it will disable. And if you got both of them checked, it will send both of them. Now, the third option to disable this is to actually kill it off for the entire Babble system. So if you go in, there's an ACP setting, if you disable it there, it will mark out that option altogether. It doesn't matter what these settings are or what their private or their personal or user settings are. It just won't send them because the system is disabled. Now, I did it that way because, one, I didn't really see a need, because the whole point of the settings in Babble is to isolate them here. So I didn't want you to have to go and turn them on and blah blah here and everything, because the notification settings, in my opinion, are kind of buried. They're not apparent. Yeah, I know they're here, but they're also here. Account settings, notification settings. I didn't want to go through that dog and pony show trying to get here when Babble settings are here with Babble, and it was like that in 2. So that's why it's kind of a hoop to get. That's why there's multiple. Like if I was to disable them right now and I refresh the page, because settings doesn't refresh, it just opens back up. As you can see, they're missing from here, but if I was to turn it back on, at least one of those options, turn it back on, they show up again. So, all right. The next one is chat bar position. There's right, left, top, and bottom. I'll show you top, because top and bottom are virtually identical and left and right are virtually identical. Just the right appears over here and the left appears over here, and top appears here, bottom appears here. But if you collapse it, it hides over here in this corner. And it does it for bottom the same way. It hide up over here. And for left and right, it just moves down to the bottom of the screen. And it will close out all your windows too. It's a technical reason. I don't want to go into it, but that's why it does it. Notification count. This is for browser notifications. So the things that pop up and say, hey, there's a new YouTube video from your favorite YouTuber or something like that. that's more or less the same system. You have to have notifications enabled for IPS. So you have to have in account settings, I think it is. I don't think it would actually show it to me because I already have them enabled. The content view behavior. Oh. I'm not 100% sure where it's at, but it's like in here somewhere where I don't think it's notification settings, is it? Yeah, that's right here. It will I can't talk. They have to be enabled for the browser. Yeah, let this browser alert me when notifications are received. If this isn't enabled, you won't receive them. But basically, it just puts up a little thing every 5 messages or 10 or whatever you set this here. It will say if you don't have the window focused, not the chat window, not this window, but the browser window itself. It will pop up, like every 5. It will say, "Oh, there's a new notification in Babble for you," that kind of thing. That's been here for a while. Truncate is actually a new feature. It's something I've been wanting to implement for a while. I just never got around to it. What this feature is, I mean, we all know a person like this that will write these big, long, huge, no paragraphs, no punctuation, no capitalization, none of that. Stories or books in a chat, or they post these really large images, and it kind of consumes all the previous messages and whatnot. Well, what Truncate does is it pops up with a read more. So basically, it truncates it to 4 lines, so it only show like 4 lines. And if you're scrolling through this and you want to read that, you click read more, and it will display the entire message. Now, originally, I wasn't going to include this because I didn't know how people would receive it. So I figured it was better just to kill it off before I released it out there in the wild. But then IPS 4.5 dropped, and quotes do it now. So I figured, IPS is doing it, and it was a good idea, right? All right, now sounds, they're virtually identical. If you like sounds, I mean, you will be in heaven. Like, you got your send sound, you got your leave sound. Like if somebody left, it sounds like a door slamming shut. If somebody enters, it sounds like a creaky door opening up. And you receive a message. It plays I don't know, it's like a ding or something like that. So if you like sounds, audible notifications, and this is where you go. Now, there is a difference. In 2, there was a whisper sound, but since whispers are more or less rooms, they hang out. I didn't see a need to have message new sound and whisper being 2 different things now. Because originally they were in the same room, and I wanted a distinction between room sound and message sound, but I didn't see a need for that distinction. Now, if there is a demand, I'll add it back in, because you might want to get an audible notification for a whisper, but you might not want to get it for all the rooms. So, like I said, if there's a demand, if you want it back in, I'll add it back in. But for right now, I don't think it's needed. All right, that is the Babble 3.0 settings. Like I said, there's a lot of them, a lot of new ones, and they do a lot of cool and interesting things now. All right, if you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I'll talk to you guys later. You have a good one.